And I felt so much peace. I always tell people it felt like Disneyland on steroids or Disney World on steroids. Like imagine how excited you get when you're like, "Oh, I'm going to Florida or I'm going to Disney." Like that's how it felt. I was like, "Woo, I'm in Disney." And I was immediately like drawn to the water. I was just taking in everything. I didn't smell the ocean or taste the ocean or like feel the ocean breeze, but what I felt was like on an emotional level, it was like so much deeper. It was like complete serenity, complete peace, and unconditional love, like just the best thing in the world. So I started to walk towards the water. And when I went to go walk towards the water, I heard my mom call my name. I heard her say, "Sarah!" She screamed it. And I literally felt like a 2-year-old kid trying to cross the street. And my mom was like, "You're about to get hit by a car or something," like she was trying to keep me from traffic or something. So it immediately stopped me in my tracks because it was such a powerful, her saying my name. It was so powerful. So I had just stopped. But when I stopped, I started to see other beings that were in the water and what I now believe were passed on.
My guest today is Sarah Chippis, who had a near death experience a few years ago, and since then has become an oracle and also a healer. And what's really fascinating about Sarah is that as she's come into this gift of oracle healing, she can trace back this lineage to her actual heritage, which originates with the Oracle of Delphi. So I'm really excited to talk to her and find out more. So, Sarah, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
This is going to be such an interesting conversation because I know we're going to dive deep and maybe do something with some kind of a reading towards the end of this. But before we do that, will you tell us a little bit about what your life was like before this NDE happened?
Yes. Before the NDE, I found myself to dealing with a lot of like depression and anxiety and just kind of wondering like why certain things happened in my life. I felt like I was a pretty good person, but I dealt with like a lot of struggle. Also like some mental health stuff, like I said, depression, anxiety, and a lot of that was because of um, the life that I had created that I didn't even realize that I was co-creating at the time. When I was younger, I dealt with a lot of abuse and abandonment issues, neglect, things like that. And so as I got older and I had my own relationships, I dealt with like domestic violence, and I really struggled with being loved, loving myself, and understanding what love really truly was.
Wow. Okay. So, will you tell us in any way, shape, or form that you want about the NDE?
Yes. So basically, because I was under so much pressure, my health started to deteriorate. And although I had been athletic most of my life, like my health started to deteriorate. And when I became pregnant for my third child, I was already like 31 years old. And I was considered a high risk pregnancy. So my son was very huge when he was born. He was like 12 pounds. I had gained a massive amount of weight where I couldn't even move, or that was basically bed rest. So you could imagine the isolation I was feeling, raising two children already, being in a high risk pregnancy, um, dealing with health issues, and also just being feeling alone and having to just fight my way even through the pregnancy. And with that being said, like I had a premonition A few days before, because I had a scheduled cesarean because the baby was so big. They wanted to take him like 6 weeks early, and so they scheduled the C-section. And I already, my prior two pregnancies, they were scheduled cesareans as well. So I had already kind of like knew what to expect going into this. But this pregnancy was a little different because I had like literally 2 days before surgery, I had this premonition. It just felt awful, terrible. Like an alarm was going off in the spiritual realm and was warning me um, of what I was about to experience. And I went to my pre op appointment and met with the anesthesiologist, and I just told her, I was like, listen, I have a bad feeling. I don't know. This anesthesia, I'm not even scared to get cut open. I'm scared of you, is what I told her. And she was like, no, we're gonna make sure you're as comfortable as possible, blah blah blah, trying to reassure me that everything was gonna be okay. And at that moment, if I could, I would have, because of the strong warning that I was getting, I would have said, no, I don't want to do this. Like if this was like an amusement park ride, I would have been like, nope, not going. If it was friends asking me to go out, I would have been like, nope. But this was having a baby and I couldn't say no. It was time. And so I like to say it was like this premonition of a warning, but then it was fate taking over because I couldn't resist it. And so when I went in on July 6th, 2017, that's the day my son was born. So therefore I know like my NDE date, my near death experience is also the day my son, you know, came to this world. And so it's a very significant date because it marks life and it marks death and it marks life and it marks death, which is a beautiful cycle of death and life that I've learned to truly understand at an even more deeper level after experiencing this NDE. So I went in and they put me in, the pre-op room, and the pre-operation nurse came in, and they prepped me for surgery. They, shaved me, did all that to make sure I was good, and I was just so I had so much anxiety, like I can feel it right now. Like I feel like I'm shaking because um they weren't listening to me when I was telling them, like, I feel like something is going to happen. I feel like something's wrong. They just thought I was scared. And I'm like telling them, like, I've already done this twice before. It's not just scared. This is something. And, anyways, so the OR nurse, which is the operating room nurse, she came to my room and she said, okay, it's time to go into the operating room. And at that point, um, I remembered the two times before when I had a cesarean, they put me in a wheelchair and they rolled me back to the operating room. And then when I was in the operating room, the nurse helped me out the wheelchair and onto the surgery bed. But this time, this lady was like, "We're walking," and I'm like, "Walking?" And she's like, "Yeah, we're gonna walk to the operating room." I'm like, "Okay." So we leave the room, we're walking down the hallway. The hallway is like super bright, super, plain white, cold as all get out. I had just a hospital gown on, and I was freezing cold already. And I started to shake uncontrollably, and the nurse just grabbed me by my hand and she said, I'm going to be with you through the whole thing. And I looked at her and I said, okay, but this feels like the walk of death. I literally deemed it the walk of death. I couldn't turn back. I had to walk through death. And when I got into the room, they had me sit on the surgery bed, and the anesthesiologist um, told me to hold a pillow. and to lean forward because he was going to give me a uh it's called a spinal, because it's not an epidural. I mean, it's very similar to an epidural because an epidural numbs your spine from your lumbar down. So you're from the waist down, you're numb. But with the spinal, they numb you at a higher vertebrae. And so it's just spinal anesthesia. I was numb from all I could move was my neck. So from the neck down, I couldn't move. I couldn't move my arms, anything. But when I was holding the pillow there and leaning forward, I was shaking. I don't know if it was from the terror of just knowing w- that this was not about to be good, or and I was praying the whole time too. Or if it was just I was so stinking cold from just everything, and just everything was cold, even the way the procedure was. Like, I'm telling them how I'm feeling, no response. Just everything uh did not feel correct. But the nurse held my hand as I leaned forward, and the spinal block was administered. Um, and then they had me lay down quickly, and I was just in and out of consciousness during surgery. I remember listening to the nurses talk about what they're eating for lunch, just their normal day. I remember actually I was talking to my doctor because I remember her using the scissors on me. I said to her, doctor doctor, are you using shears on me right now? And she literally stopped, and she went, because she's so sweet, she said, "Are you feeling any pain?" And I said, "No, but I know what you're doing." And she said, "Yes, I am. I'm using the scissors." So I was very conscious and knew what was happening, but the weakened state of my body, it had me in and out um, of consciousness. And so they got the baby out, and I was quickly moved into the recovery room before I got an actual room. And in the recovery room is where the NDE actually happened. So the first thing I remember in the recovery room is all the lights were really dim, and I opened my eyes, and the nurse had came to me to check on me. And I looked at her, and out of like desperation, I was like, I am so thirsty. I'm so thirsty. Like, I'd never been this thirsty in my life. Okay. I live in Oklahoma where it gets 110 degrees in the summer. I've never been this thirsty in my life. I was so thirsty. And I asked her for some water, and she said, "Well, you just came out of surgery, so I can't give you water. You have to wait a little bit." And I said, "Ice. Can I have ice?" And she said, "No, I cannot give you ice." So when she walked away, I just passed out. I just passed out. And I actually woke up to my mother, who she was the only one in the surgery with me. And she was the only one that came into the recovery room with me. I woke up to her at the door, at my hospital door, like with it open like this, with her arm in the door, and she's like yelling out in the hallway for the nurses. And what I hear her say is her heart rate is dropping. That's what I hear her say. So a whole bunch of nurses came in, they were scattering around me. They didn't seem really to know what was going on or like what to do or anything like that. And so they called for the head anesthesiologist that was on the floor. So it wasn't the anesthesiologist that administered the medication to me, but it was the head anesthesiologist in charge. And so he came to my room, and I remember he was a tall Caucasian male. I remember him walking over and washing his hands. I remember him coming over to me, and him telling me that, oh, he said, "How are you?" And I said, "I'm thirsty." Then I started asking him for water and ice. And he said to me, "You're not," because I started like, I started getting like so desperate that I was like asking him if I could get naked. Like, I was like, "Can I please, if you won't give me ice or water, like, I gotta get naked." Like, I can't keep this, just too hot. And he let me know, he was like, "You're not actually hot, you're actually cold." And I was like, I first of all, I was already in like so much distress. I was trying to comprehend what was happening and what he was saying, but I didn't really get it. And he was like, it's he said, "You have you have morphine induced hypothermic shock." And I didn't understand any of that at the time, but what he said was, "We're going to give you warm IV fluids, and we're going to give you a blanket," is what he said to me. And I guess basically what morphine induced, because afterwards, now that I've done some research, what morphine induced hypothermic shock is, it's basically when someone is administered morphine, their blood vessels dilate and they lose their body temperature, their core body temperature. They lose the homeostasis. And so it's up to the staff and everybody to keep the person warm. And they didn't keep me warm enough. And so I literally went into hypothermic shock. I was literally freezing to death and my organs were shutting down. And what that is related to is, if you ever see like people that climb mountains and Mount Everest and things like that, and some of them they die of hypothermic shock, and you find them out in the mountains or in the snow and they're naked. They find their clothes next to them. And the reason why is because when your body loses homeostasis, you basically don't know whether you're hot or cold. So in that moment, I was like, I felt like I was so hot and thirsty, but apparently I was really, really cold. And so he didn't let me get naked. He didn't give me any water. He just gave me warm IV fluids. He said basically that was to warm me up from the inside, my core temperature. And then when he said a blanket, but afterwards I found out that what it was, my mother had told me, it's called a bear hugger. And it's a type of blanket that blows hot air onto the patient. So they were trying to warm me up from the inside with the warm IV fluids, and they were trying to warm me up on the outside with the bear hugger. But actually, what ended up happening is about, I don't know how much time, because listen, it felt like, I don't know, time in the spirit is different, because I don't know even know how long I was in there or how long I experienced all this. But the doctor, the head anesthesiologist, ended up coming back in to check to see if I was getting better. And I actually was getting worse. And I didn't even, at this point, I was like passed out. So my mother had told me this part. She said that the head anesthesiologist came back in and the bear hugger was blowing cold air on me. And that's why my vitals had plummeted. So I didn't even know. And she said that he ripped that off of me and said to the nurses, "Get one that works." What I do remember is a whole bunch of nurses coming in freaking out, like not like scattering, like not really knowing what to do. At that moment, that's when my vitals dropped and I left my body. That's when it was the complete outer body experience. And immediately there was no hospital around me. It was only the ocean. So the chaos had stopped. The commotion had stopped. It was complete peace. There was nobody around me. My mother wasn't there. The doctors weren't there. The nurses weren't there. The hospital wasn't there. The hospital room wasn't there. The bed wasn't there. Nothing. It was the beautiful ocean in front of me. And I was standing like a little bit ways back from the water's edge. I was probably like, I don't know how far, a quarter of a football field, I don't know, 20, 25 yards or something away from the water. And it was beautiful. It was like a beautiful sunny day, but it wasn't too It wasn't a scorcher. It was just beautiful. And I felt so much peace. It felt, I always tell people, it felt like Disneyland on steroids or Disney World on steroids. Like, imagine how excited you get when you're like, oh, I'm going to Florida, or I'm going to Disney. Like, that's how it felt. I was like, whoo, I'm in Disney. And I was immediately like drawn to the water. And so, I looked around me and I was just taking in everything. um I couldn't, I didn't smell the ocean or taste the ocean or like feel the ocean breeze, but what I felt was like on an emotional level, it was like so much deeper. It was like complete serenity, complete peace, and unconditional love, like just the best thing in the world. And so I started to walk towards the water. And when I went to go walk towards the water, I heard my mom call my name. I heard her say, Sarah. She screamed it. And I literally felt like a 2-year old kid trying to cross the street. And my mom was like, you're about to get hit by a car or something, like she was trying to keep me from traffic or something. And so it immediately stopped me in my tracks because it was such a powerful, um her saying my name. It was so powerful. So I had just stopped. And but when I stopped, I started to see other beings, that were in the water, and what I now believe, were passed on, loved ones of other people. They weren't, you know my past loved ones, which is so weird because you think when you die and you go meet God, or you go meet eternity, that you're going to see. And I'm not saying some people don't, but I didn't see, my grandma, or you know loved ones that have passed. I didn't see those that I had recognized. I didn't, I actually, I didn't see Jesus, but I felt all of them. Like, I felt the love, I felt the presence that engulfed all those labels. And when I looked to the left of me, what I saw was a Caucasian woman with blonde hair, and she had her hair in a ponytail. And she was with her baby, and her baby was about 9 months old, and it was a little boy, and he was very bald. And she had him in one of those yellow floaties. I don't know if you guys ever see babies swimming in those yellow rafts. So she had him in the yellow raft, and she was only like up to her thigh in water, and she's just like playing with them, and you know like pulling them around like this. And when I tell you, I didn't know who they were, but like the love and bond that they shared was so immensely strong. I'm getting goosebumps right now just talking about it, because it was the bond of a parent and a child, and it was specifically a mother and a son. And in that moment, as quick as it was or as long as it was, I have no idea, but I know that, like, I felt what it was like to be a baby son having a mother's love, and I felt like what it was to be a mother with a son's love, like both dynamics all in one. It was so encompassing. And then I looked to the right of me and I saw three middle-aged men, and they were, I don't know, they looked like they were like Italian or something like that, because they were like Caucasian but like kind of olive skin with dark hair. And they were just treading water, probably like chest deep or even deeper, but they were like treading water, and they were in a circle, and they were just laughing and telling jokes and just like having a great time. And the bond was a male brotherly bond. And I didn't at the time understand why God was showing me this parent and child love, and then this brother on brother love, I'm a woman in this lifetime. I don't know what it's like to have brotherly love like that. Maybe sisterly love, but in that moment, I felt brotherly love. And let me tell you, that camaraderie is so strong. It goes like, I thought those, I was like, what are they, friends for lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes? Like, it was the bond and closeness, the soul bond was so tight that I was just enamored by it. So, anyways, I was drawn to the water, so I started going towards the water. I was excited. I was about to go and just have a good time with them. And I heard my mom call my name again. And I'm not gonna lie, I was upset because she screamed it. She was like, "Sarah," like that, like demanding. And I was like, it felt like a C block. I don't want to say it, like a cock block. Like it felt like like if you're about to go on a date and then like somebody's like blah blah blah. Like I was just like, whoa, I'm about to enter Disney World. Like, why are you why are you screaming my name? What do you want? What could possibly anybody want in this moment? You know? But when she called my name that second time, I was so responsive that I didn't even have a choice. I immediately turned my head. And when I immediately turned my head, I was back in the hospital bed. I was back in my body. I was back there, but the room was silent. Nobody was in it but my mother. And my mother was standing to the side of me, to the right of me, and she had her hands on me and she was just praying in the spirit. She was praying in tongues, actually, in the spirit. I had no idea what she was saying. And I felt so peaceful. And at that moment, I saw like a shadow figure come off of her prayer and lay with me. And let me tell you what, it felt so warm, so comforting. I felt like everything was going to be okay. And I actually had said to my mom later on, thanks for laying with me, because that really made me feel good. And she said, I didn't lay with you. And I said, I saw something. And she said, it wasn't me. And at that moment, I asked Source, well, what was that? And Source told me, I sent you an angel of warmth. I sent you an angel of comfort. And it literally came off the prayer. So it's very important to pray and to speak, because if she wasn't there speaking, I would have went. Because let me tell you, it felt, it was pulling me. But that's what had kept me from crossing over, because I feel like if my foot would have touched the water, I would have crossed over. Um, But after everything, I was, even though it felt more peaceful on the other side, I literally was so thankful that my mom prayed, so that she said she didn't want to raise three children. But I'm so glad, because she wasn't meant to. God wanted me to come here, back here, be with my children, and He had a bigger purpose for me, because then now I'm able to take my experiences, things that I've learned, even from the NDE, and be able to apply it towards something deeper for the whole collective, for everybody, for whoever needs healing. And so that's why I actually share my story. That's why I do like my YouTube. That's why I do energy healing and spiritual advisement, is because I really feel like every NDE has a spiritual pre-death. And people usually have NDEs because they have to be woken up to a higher purpose. So I felt like I was a very stubborn soul. Not that I was a bad soul. I needed to learn to love myself more. I needed to learn certain things, and I had to really wake up and to step into my purpose. And so now I do intuitive healing. I have a website, lighthousedelphi.com. You guys can email me. Um, and now I'm able to just have purpose out of the pain. What was once painful, I'm able to um turn it into gold, baby.
Wow, Sarah. So I have a bunch of questions after that explanation of your NDE. So one of the things that's very interesting is that you said that you realized that you needed to love yourself more. And I noticed that this is a common theme with NDEers, where they are shown something on the other side about how they were not really fully loving themselves. It didn't sound like you were shown something, but obviously something changed because it was then a part of what you experienced afterwards. So, will you share with us what exactly happened that helped you to realize that you were not loving yourself enough?
Yes. So what I realized Source was showing me through the relationship when I saw the mother and the son and also the friends, Source was showing me that all we take with us is love. The love that we cultivate within ourselves and with each other. And I had came to a point in my life where I had like hated myself because, I had children, I wasn't married. I I felt like my body, I was going through a lot of health concerns. Like I felt like a failure. Like I dealt with suicidal things, and um Source was just showing me like all you take with you is the love that you have, and you're a being of love. And I'm like, oh, so I'm not all the things that happened to me? Oh, so just because I was abused as a child doesn't mean that I'm not lovable? Oh, because, domestic violence, they hit me. Oh, that doesn't mean that I don't deserve love. And it all starts with ourselves, with loving ourselves and knowing that we deserve love just because God says God put us here, and God is love. So if you have love in your heart to give even despite your circumstances, that is God right there, like cultivated between us, between the connection that we have with each other and with ourselves. So the core thing was like healing a lot of limited beliefs that I had developed subconsciously, and rewiring now, knowing that that love that I experience, whatever you want to call it, I know people call like the brotherly love, like phileo love, however form that love takes, parent, kid, it's to cultivate that, and it starts within loving ourselves.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I can see how emotional you are. And it still, even though it happened a little while ago, it still seems like it hits you emotionally when you talk about all of these things.
It really does, because I don't want what I went through be in vain. Like I want somebody to gain some sort of um heart unlocking, or you know expansion, or some sort of enlightenment, some sort of switch to go off for them, even if it's just something subtle. you know I just really I'm passionate about making a difference for people, because I didn't have anybody to really lead me through healing after an NDE. Nobody's really there. Like some people, like when I didn't the first person I told was my mother, and then I didn't even talk about it forever. And so it's just a process to heal from the NDE, and it's a process to heal from childhood issues, and also, you know like I said, relationship issues when I was older with my kids' fathers, and just it's people have their own things that they go through. Hopefully they can find some, relatability, and understand that we're one. I didn't know those people in the water, but I knew them in here. It was very beautiful. And so that's what I want to bring, is like I want to bring um a certain like light code to people as I share this.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And integration is often one of the most difficult things. I know on average it takes people between 10 and 20 years sometimes before they'll ever speak about this. And so there is a community that, for those of you who are watching, if you had some type of an experience that you're trying to integrate, you can reach out to the IANS, the International Association for Near Death Studies, where people get together in local chapters. They also have a national conference, and you'll find a lot of community support from people who have had similar experiences to you. So I'm just going to mention that.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
not sponsored in any way, shape, or form by IANS, but they are an organization definitely near and dear to my heart.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
for something like that, whoever created that, like, you know how much pain they had to go through to actually make that because we're talking pioneering because like I said nobody would and plus I was in isolation, so some people don't reach out till later and things like that, but yeah, reach out to the ions, email me, go to my website, like whatever you need to do to gain healing.
That's really great. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the water because water seems to have some significance for a lot of people on the other side. I don't know if the term water of life has any spiritual kind of a resonance with you when I say that, but I've seen people who have had near death experiences that they encounter a river that they can't cross, and they do see beings on the other side of it. And they are made to know, I guess, intuitively that if they were to cross that river, that they wouldn't be able to return. And then there are also healings that I've heard of that people have touched the water and it's created some type of an internal healing. But it's interesting for you that it was presented as an ocean where you were witnessing the three men having this camaraderie together. You were witnessing the mother and the baby son connected together, but they were in the water already. So since you've had a chance to really absorb and think about this near death experience, what do you think the significance of that water was?
I believe it was a portal to go
Mm.
to the other side. Um, Actually, I just wrote a book and it's going to be coming out next week. And the name of my actual chapter, because it's an anthology, there's a few other people telling about their NDE experience, but my chapter is called the Water Portal. And Source was telling me that water is a portal. It's also like a conduit. And so I intuitively knew if I would have stepped in that water, I wouldn't have been able to come back either. And I think maybe that's why my mom was screaming so much, like so hard, because it's like there was only a certain amount of steps or time before I was drawn into the water because I was being pulled almost like the moon pulls the ocean. Like I was being pulled like an undertow or something like into the water. Um, but water is so significant for me on so many levels. The first thing I would say is not only is water a portal, but I think of water as like a a double a double how can I say this, Source? It's like a okay, I heard parallel universe because basically you have the waters of the earth, which we haven't even explored fully at all. We have no idea the depths of it. But then we also have the upper waters, which is the cosmos. Okay. And I also resonate with certain star systems that had like ancient galactic mermaids, things like that, as well as the fact that like I was originally born in Rhode Island, and Rhode Island is called the Ocean State. Um, And it's so funny, whenever I was, dying, I was so thirsty. Like, all I wanted was water. So for it being life, it's more than life. It fills our cells, it fills our DNA. It allows us to be able to crystallize certain areas of our DNA. I believe in like speaking to your water, you know?
Oh
I
yeah, water holds frequencies for sure.
Yes, and I actually after my NDE, Source really dealt with me about using my transmutation powers basically for the water. So basically, all that means, if you're not into like spiritual stuff, all that means is like I use the water to ground, but then I also give back to the water. So when I'm in the water, she heals me, and I heal her. We have a beautiful relationship. So after the NDE, it just made like me and water are like extra tight. Like we were already tight and now we're like extra tight. So the element of water being the emotional body of a person and also being representing the divine feminine, and it's also represents the Holy Spirit and also just a cup of love. When I do tarot, the Ace of Cups, it's the anointing of the spirit. And so it was just it was overwhelming, the synchronicities and everything with the water. um I don't even know. I guess the only other way it could, I because I love the mountains, but maybe it could have came as the mountains, but for me, yeah, it was definitely the water was the significance.
Well, I believe that water is a living, sentient being, and it needs to be in a place where it's not stagnant. And there's an amazing documentary about water on Amazon Prime. I think it's probably free for people who have Prime. And it's like a 90-minute documentary where they talk about water and all the research that's being done showing that it is a living, sentient, it heals, it has the ability to hold frequency, it absolutely takes on energetic shapes based on what it's fed. There's Dr. Hashimoto did all kinds of studies about water and the crystallization. Putting a
Mm,
word like hate versus love would change the crystallization to be more
yes.
organized or less organized. So there's all kinds of information. But people, if they want more to learn more about water, I really highly recommend that
Did you know the
documentary.
name of
I
that?
don't remember it. I
Okay.
watched it probably 8 months ago, so I can't remember what the name of it is. But if you look
Okay.
up water and a documentary on Amazon Prime, I'm sure you'll find it. But I want to talk about one other part of your NDE, which is also very significant. So I have watched, listened to, read well over 2,500, probably more than that by now. And I've interviewed about 200 people who have had these NDEs. And I have found over and over again that people come back when their name is being called. And it doesn't matter if it's a loved one like your mother or if it's a complete stranger. There have been people at the scene of an accident who are yelling somebody's name, and it takes them out of whatever they're experiencing on the other side and takes their attention away momentarily. And then sometimes they're given a choice whether they want to come back or not. Sometimes they voluntarily come back. It's almost like a remembering of, oh, yeah, that's what I was. And they could be on the other side for what feels like millennia, or they could be on the other side for what feels like a few seconds. But there is definitely something very, very powerful with what your name is and being called back into the physical human body.
Yes. Wow.
Have you heard of that before? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I did not know. And that's why I'm just like, wow, okay. Okay, I had no idea. I did
Oh,
not know
yes, it's
that.
a theme over and over and over again that I have definitely extrapolated out of all of these experiences.
Wow. And it's funny because when she called my name, I felt like a child. I felt like a kid. Um,
But her yelling it once wasn't enough. It had to be multiple times.
I would have not chose. I'm just being completely honest, okay? Like, I love my children. I, I would not trade them for anything. But in that moment, if she wouldn't have been so assertive, I'll say, I would have kept walking into the water.
Yeah, you and a lot of people have had that same sentiment where said the same thing because that feeling of love and peace is so overwhelming. It's home. Who wants to leave home to come back to the chaos of this world?
I did. Yes. That's all I'm gonna say. Yeah.
So, Sarah, since this NDE, you have developed some very unique gifts. And I talked about you being an oracle. So, will you explain a little bit about this heritage that you have uncovered that ties you back to the Oracle of Delphi in Greece.
Yes. So basically, I've always been like a spiritual person. Like I always spent a lot of time alone with God. When I was younger, I spent a lot of time with nature, the animals, and God. Um, so I have always had like a really tight relationship with God. Even though I had dealt with all those things, I still had like this love and this hope, you know, within me. And after the NDE, I started to expand more. So I went from more of like religion into waking up into more spirituality. And it's not that I chose spirituality over, Christianity. I actually have integrated them. So like I believe in Jesus, and at the same time I believe that God wants us to learn to heal, and there's certain steps that God has given us gifts to use in a for his kingdom, for the kingdom of love. And so I used to get tormented by my gifts because I didn't know how to control them. I didn't know what they were. I would get overwhelmed. When I was younger, I would see like demonic beings. I'm actually doing a mini series right now called Supernatural Sightings of the Dark Realm, where I expose different, have like mini episodes um, of me talking about experiences I've had throughout my life. And I just kind of wanted to run from it. I mean, even the Holy Spirit, God, source would come to me and tell me, even like in the relationships I was in, like, this is not for you. You need to, like I said, you need to learn to love yourself. This is not that. And it was like a constant me having to learn some things and then listen. And after the NDE, what it helped me do though is learn to surrender and listen first instead of like resisting and fighting and constantly having to learn lessons. I'm going more towards like a dharmic path than that karmic, the repetitive cycles. I'm breaking free from those things. Thank you, God. Um, but sorry about this. Time out. What was the main question? Because sometimes I go off
You're
tangent.
so cute. It was the how you discovered that this was tied back into
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah,
Oracle
yeah.
of
Okay.
Delphi. I
I'm
knew
so
it's
sorry.
okay.
You'd
I was
have to
gonna
edit
lead you
this.
back. It's fine. It's
It's
fine.
okay. So basically, I had to go through a lot of limited beliefs, not just with my self worth, but also with religious belief systems and upbringings, because Source was calling me to a higher standard, a higher level, a higher archetype, as you could say, to give back to humanity. So I got a new name, Mediterranean Goddess. God told me one day, like, you're a goddess, you're a Mediterranean goddess. And I'm like, yeah, I'm Greek heritage. Okay. So I started creating and doing all this and doing my website. And then one day, about 2 years into doing my Oracle stuff, um, the ancestors came to me, my ancestors, and it was such a surreal experience because I was told about the Greek Holocaust, the Greek massacre, where 600,000 Greeks were killed. Everybody wants to talk about just Jewish. There was a lot of Greeks that died during the war. My grandfather actually was a war orphan, um, and I was being shown by my ancestors the pain that we had endured, but also the spirit that we have. And my family, they come from Athens, but before Athens, they came from a village not so far from Delphi. Um, Schimatori is what it's called. And I was shown, and also my uncle told me that my great great grandmother, who I have a picture of, was an actual healer as well in Greece, and they thought she was a little cuckoo, right? Because everybody that talks about these things is a little bit cuckoo. Because you know why? It depends on how open that their vision is. How open is somebody's spiritual vision, right? So I've learned that if people don't believe me, if people don't resonate with it, it's just they're not, their spiritual eye is not fully opened yet. And that is okay because we're all at different, you know, spectrums of the rainbow. We're all at different, areas of growth and healing and stuff like that. But my ancestors came to me and they told me, I want you to change, not necessarily my name from Mediterranean goddess, but I want you to make a business. Now it's not just you helping the collective Mediterranean goddess, helping the collective. Now it's Lighthouse Delphi, and we're going to light it up. And a lighthouse lights up the ocean. There's the water
Sure.
element again, and
Yeah.
it opens up a safe haven for people that are lost at sea. So my ancestors said, that's what you're doing. You're a beacon of light for those that are lost at sea because do you remember being lost at sea and the only light you had was within you? Now we got to spark the lights within each and every one of us. So it's like, that's what I'm doing. The oracles at Delphi being my ancient ancestors, as well as I resonate with past life as Oracle of Delphi. They were very select few, is actually three of them that they would select at a time. And these women, they were the oracles, and people would come from all over Greece to bring them gifts and to ask about anything that was going on in their life. They were the center of wisdom, and they were called the Pythias or the Pythias of Apollo. And so I feel that that runs through my veins. I'm very intuitive and I'm happy to use my gifts for the kingdom of love.
I love it. Do you want to give a quick example of maybe what you do?
Like a quick card pull or something?
Yeah.
Sure, why not? I love
Okay.
that. Oh my gosh. I would say that doing card readings is one of my passions, and um it took a lot of courage for me. And I don't know if I'm saying this because maybe somebody else needs to hear this, but it took a lot of courage for me because I had everybody going against it. I mean, my family, everyone. And I had to say, okay, if this is helping me healing and I'm being guided to do this, you know, I'm not working for evil. I'm working for the kingdom. You know what I mean? And so sometimes people get blindsided and they don't know what's right or what's wrong because of certain belief systems and things like
Sure.
that.
Yep.
And I just
Yep.
ask people to question certain things and allow God to show you and reveal to you the truth.
Yeah,
Ashe.
I always say take in what resonates and leave behind what doesn't, because what's true for you is true for you. Maybe what's being said is something that you'll never come back to. Maybe it's just not for you right now. Maybe it will never be for you. But you really
Mhm.
have to check in with that intuition, your heart space, because we're all on our own path. And it's not fair to judge from your vantage point what is right for somebody else on their path.
That's right. Yes, because that's devil energy. That's called controlling. We're not doing that. All right,
Exactly.
so I'm going to get a quick card for the collective here.
I love this.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much for holding space. Thank you to all the listeners. You guys are awesome. I hope that my story touched your life. So let's go ahead. Holy Spirit, ancestors of the highest of my truth. All right. We got anticipation. Something wonderful is happening. So you might resonate with dragonflies, and dragonflies are all about rebirth, enlightenment. Um, it says change is in the air. Open yourself to the blessings on their way. So I heard don't block your own blessings because sometimes we think that things are always going to be a certain way, a certain way, a certain way. And God has so much more for us on the other side of heartache or whatever we're going through. There's actually wonderful things happening. And I'm hearing the lotus flower, like growing out of the mud, right? So anticipate some sort of change happening, and this change is actually a good change because it's going to open the path, open the roads for blessings to come into your life. And then it says, reaching for your dreams, go for it.
I love that. Sarah, you know what's crazy is this morning when I was getting ready for my day, I was listening to an interview that not an interview, it's really a podcast that Robert Edward Grant was doing. And he's
I love
somebody that
him.
do you?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that you would know him. Well, I'm going to Egypt with him on his trip in a week and a half.
Shut
And
up.
on this particular podcast I listened to, he mentioned two things. He mentioned dragonflies and he mentioned the lotus flower. And you said both of those things just now.
Sorry, that's spirit moving right now. I Robert Grant, I watch his like Egypt trips and he's such a advanced star seed. Like I look
Yeah.
up to him. I can't believe you're going to Egypt. God bless you. You're gonna have so much unlocking
It's
for
going to be
you.
amazing. There's 144 people on this trip, and he's going to be on that.
144.
Yeah, and Matthias De Stefano is going to be on that trip as well. I know. I know. It's pretty amazing.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And that's what I'm saying. We're going for our dreams. Reaching for your dreams, go for it. And something wonderful is happening. Yeah. So
Now, this
anticipate.
isn't just for, she didn't do this reading for me. She did this reading for the collective.
This is collective.
Right. I'm just commenting on two things that stood out as she talked.
She's talking about alignment. And the thing is I feel like wonderful things are coming and these are things that we've anticipated and waited for years and years and years on end. I mean, there's been times where like we thought we were wishing in a wishing well. Like, is it ever going to happen? I know I've put my dues in. I know I've invested. Is anything growing out of this? And source is saying anticipate the blessings. So your dreams are coming. Anticipate your dreams coming true. I'll just do one more card.
Yeah, go for it.
We got Moonstone, Mystery and Intuition. So follow your intuition on where you're guided to. It's so funny because I'm getting like, it's not about the end road. When you're I'm hearing like wishing and hoping and praying and sometimes people are like, are my prayers being unanswered? Am I blowing smoke or whatever this is? But God is saying he is the great mystery. God is the great mystery. Spirit is the great mystery, right? And it unfolds for us. And how do we know if we're on the right path? Is following your own intuition. Where we get into trouble is whenever we're trying to just make our own kind of like people say, make your own path, which I understand because we're trailblazers, right? We're making a path, but at the same time, there's already our higher self there. If we follow the intuition, we can discover the mystery. There's going to be a mystery, you guys. As this specific, what I'm about to say right now is for you guys, for you. Um, you're gonna you guys are gonna figure something out over there. There's gonna be some sort of
Oh, I
mystery.
know we are. I know we are. I know that's why this group, and
Woo!
it's 1:11 my time, and I got my signal, which is the hair standing up in my ear when you said that.
I don't know if it's gonna be some sort of coordinates or tomb or some sort of mystery, something. Oh
I
yeah,
have no doubt that that's energetically what's going on. Well,
that's beautiful.
Sarah, this has been so much fun, and I would imagine that people who are watching will want to get a hold of you. So tell us, when exactly is your book coming out? And remember, these videos live in perpetuity. This is January of 2025 when we're recording this right now. So when does your book come out and how can people work with you?
My book comes out on January the 28th, 2025. You can find it on Amazon. All the links are going to be on my website, on my socials, and my website is lighthousedelphi.com. You can email me also, lighthousedelphi@gmail.com. Or you can find me, I'm very active on YouTube and Instagram. You can also find me on there.
Okay, excellent. Sarah, I love your energy. You have such a sweetness about you and an authenticity that I just really resonate with. So, I want to thank you for your vulnerability because you shared with me that when you talk about your NDE, it makes you really nervous. I don't think it shows at all. But again, it just kind of speaks back to that authenticity of the place that you're coming from. And I want to thank you for wanting to share this with everybody because what you're doing is helping to wake up the collective. And I think that that is so needed right now.
It's an honor.
And I want to say thank you to everybody for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.